report writing, and I haven't prepared lots of things on report writing because most of the instructions you actually need are on that document that was handed out to you with all of the slides. So some of the things that I'm going to treat today as a workshop and a coaching style session with your questions about what you need to do in terms of writing up this report and getting an HD mark for it. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? So I can't do your assignment for you, of course, because I don't know what business you're working on. I can't even tell you what business to choose, but there are some things that we can. I have got some stuff on visions and missions that may be useful for you. So similar sorts of things. So I guess the best thing to do with this is to actually start with what questions have you? None.
Recommendations.
Okay, so the main thing to work out with, if like unlike an essay where last week we went through and said, okay, well you've got an introduction, we looked at some, you know, how the paragraphs link up and that kind of thing. Those principles within the body of your report will apply anyway, so that on paragraphs with a topic sentence and some explanation and then some development of that and then something that sets up the next paragraph which is kind of like a conclusion sentence in each paragraph. It's interesting to know what your key questions are. So if I'll start with this one that they're giving me the topic of. Where's the first thing that you are not sure where to go on?
Like an article, you know, is it in elaboration of it or what? You know?
So what's... All right, so it's similar to the actual essay writing. What's the actual question? This is a different one from the one I was going to discuss, but your article one, what is the actual question that you've got? What does the question say?
Yeah.
For this assessment, you'll be required to select from one of your weekly readings, 1 to 5, and prepare a report based on the key marketing concepts that were covered in class during the article, using the article as a basis for the application of the theory. All right, so as with all of these, what's the question actually asking? So we've got to prepare a report on marketing concepts. This report should also draw on additional readings and examples to demonstrate analysis and understanding. The report should focus on one topic area and demonstrate application of the theoretical concepts with current examples and experiences. 1,000, 1,500 words. Oh, a couple of paragraphs. Okay. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Key marketing concepts in an article, but you also have to look at other articles. So what are your key marketing concepts? We'll start with that one, seeing it's come up.
Understanding.
Understanding the customer. Yep. What else? Marketing research. Okay.
You have to know, understand your competitor.
Understand competitor. Yep, that sounds. And that'll be an outflow of that, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So let's make that a sub-point of that one.
The SWOT analysis.
Yep, SWOT.
And then the PASO.
Yep. And one of the things I wasn't able to show you, a nice slide I found. One side I looked at when I was preparing this earlier today was suggested doing this first, and then that gives you more clues on this, because the PESTLE analysis covers what?
Macro.
Sorry?
Macro environment.
The macro.
Yeah,
Political.
macro environment, all of that kind of stuff. It's all external to the business, as I understand it.
That business cannot control.
So that's external to your business, where SWOT might, include one of the weaknesses might be something like, well, I've got $50 in the bank, but I actually need $5,000 capital to start my business. Yes? And that would be a weakness. A potential threat, in fact. What else? Sorry?
Target market.
Target market, yep. segmentation, yep. So even just with those ones, you've got this report to write, and I'll just have another look at the question. So it's just really, you've got to analyse an article, yes? So what the challenge with these things is always to be looking, you know, make sure you're absolutely clear what the question's after, and that one's
It's very.
I hesitate to put this on video, but it's a tricky question.
Yeah.
So one direct answer to that is go to your teacher and go, exactly what do we want? But if in the absence of that you go, okay, well, what's the best interpretation we can come up with? So based on what I can see there is, first of all, what do you think the question is asking you to learn? Because last week I was talking about any one of these assignments, no matter how challenging or how interestingly worded, there's still an opportunity to learn. And if they're well crafted, they should be actually helping you learn the subject that you're studying. So what do you think they're actually wanting you to have a deeper knowledge of, an ability, perhaps a future ability to apply? These things.
Yeah.
That's how I would interpret the question. They're actually wanting to go, do you actually understand these marketing concepts so that when you see a well-written article, and presumably, I would assume we're now looking for an article that has a marketing pitch to it. Otherwise, how are you going to demonstrate these things? So the question then becomes, have you found an article that either quite overtly or covertly demonstrates that business being spoken about or speaking about itself understands its customers and its target market, that it understands what segment of the market or segments of the market it's working in, that it has a good sense of who its competitors are, and that it covers these kinds of things, that it's done some form of analysis. Have you done that yet? Have you found an article that would give you that information?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, let's see, what headings have they given you for the article? Apart from the body, is it just the general stuff, table of contents, executive summary?
Yeah, general business report.
Okay, good. So, interesting one.
Well, we could take any of those the headings there and just brush it out in the article, I guess.
Yeah, so reading the wording, it's an analysis of the article, an analysis of these things being demonstrated in the article, and also asking you to use other articles to support it, and your readings, of course, and any other research. I guess the main challenge in this one is that, okay, you've got all the standard headings like exec summary, etc., etc. The main part is going to be the body of your part, which is your key analysis, I guess. One of your jobs within in doing this will be to, I would think, well, with respect to your analysis of the article, what do you think will be one of your main things that you'll be wanting to do? Assess how well the article demonstrates these, I would have thought. Does that make sense from the question? Yeah. So you look at the article and go, does the article, how many of these things does it actually cover, and how well does it cover it? And you may then be able to, if the article's well done, actually even regardless of how the article is well done and who has done it, I would hope that you would get some idea of how well the company that it's being written about also understands these things. Would that be a reasonable thing? I'm not studying marketing,
I guess so.
but I'm looking at if that's what you have to do, then the...
I'm looking at an article by Nestle.
Right.
And palm oil. That they're,
On the palm oil.
Yeah, on the palm oil.
Yes.
Oil issue. And I guess that they looked at all these things and reassess what the SWOT analysis as to where they're going wrong. I guess
Right.
they bring these
Okay, good. And that also suggests that then the article has a good attention on what?
On the external.
Yes.
The macro environment, basically.
Sounds like that's the main focus of the article. From what you just said too, it sounds like there's also, they flow into this as what are some of the threats or what are some of the weaknesses they're currently showing, because
And then fixing the
there's bound to be an environmental backlash
Yes.
with consumers in that.
So this is an example of the article, it's all about social marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yours is about social marketing.
Social marketing, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the one you're going to analyse?
Yes.
I'm not really sure between all of the things.
So, all right, the question for you then would be, how would you determine if the article you've chosen is one that's going to be a good one for the question, for the assignment you've been given?
Well, the lecturer has already given us the articles
Mm-hmm.
that we're supposed to be coming on. So I assume that he's already gone through them and analysed them himself
Mm-hmm.
in order to give them to us to go with the flow,
Okay.
basically.
Does that necessarily mean that they're great articles?
Not really, but
No.
we should use others to maybe compare it to. and
To
form
compare
out.
against, yes, yeah. So there's going to be a comparison process. Well, let's see for how well the article demonstrates one or some of these particular aspects. There's one that was just mentioned about Nestle. It sounds like it's predominantly concentrating on the pestle and SWOT analysis, the outflow from the environment of the environmentally minded consumer backlash threat. In that case, it would be then interesting, what are some possibilities you could have in terms of other types of articles you might want to compare with that? Is there a company, for example, that has already managed to deal with this type of problem and deal with it in an effective way? Or, by contrast, is there one that's attempted to do this? And is there an article showing that they've attempted but done a very poor job
Yeah.
of it? That could be something that I'd be at least considering where I'm asked to look at other articles.
Because I've got an example of that social marketing, where it's a company did it well,
Yes.
a company that did not so well, Nike did it not so well.
Right.
A lot of protests about the labour practices.
That's right,
For
yes. Yes. Oh, good, good.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I have to excuse because we don't take this.
So the next thing then is, without me actually doing the assignment for you, what becomes the next question? Because I can't do that for you.
Can't you?
No, I could, but I refuse.
Part of it is us giving a recommendation of what the company should be doing as well.
Yeah. And even if it's not a recommendation, let's suppose the article might or might not give you enough. So if it gives you enough to let you suggest some recommendations of how it might apply to marketing concepts more effectively, the other thing that may happen with some of these, I imagine, you might look at the article and go, they haven't really told me enough. So the question arises, how much does the company actually know about what it's doing? And how does it actually do that? So, what's going to be the thing that most helps you now? Probably some questions about how to sort out what to go here. So let's brainstorm some questions you may like to ask yourself in terms of these, of actually doing your analysis. So, and this, by the way, as you get more practice at this, would be hopefully the kinds of questions that you'll start to generate for yourself, or at least with your peers. So Okay, I'll just do some of my questions and hopefully that will then generate some of your questions. So I'm looking at an article and I go, question, I go, okay, so first of all, how well does the article, I'll put the word exhibit, the marketing concepts. Is that a useful question to ask?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it might be fantastically, it might be terrible. And a subset of that is how many of them. Does it exhibit? Because if it only looks at this and this, then, for example, if it's only a few of them, I might go, what? I'll just put it as what is missing, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So in other words, what's either missing in the article itself in terms of what it's not told me? So this might be just missing information, or, let's put that in as in the article. I'm better if I say it and then I know what I want to write. Anyone who knows Myers-Briggs, you can see the extrovert process in action here. Or it might be that there's a lot of information in there, but what's missing in the organisation's operations or strategies? I'll just put operations, but you can think strategy, tactics, whatever it's doing.
And then we give some suggestion there, you know.
Oh yeah. So it might be like, okay, well, look, this is all very well. So a question that immediately comes to mind with your Nestle one, that they're doing this and they're doing this. Has there been a shift in their customers though? Do they still understand their customer? It may or may not be relevant, but that might be something that's worth considering. So has the demographic changed such that they're missing their market? They're concentrating a lot here and going, okay, well, are the people who have the environmental concern about palm oil, is that just the younger generations or older generations, or is it right across? What percentage of their customers is that? So I'm looking at it from a purely selfish business point of view, that if it was only 10% of my target market, can I just make up for that in some other way? Hopefully they won't, but they'll actually attend to the palm oil problem. But so that's what I mean by what is missing. So your suggestions, yeah. So it would be nice to see that if they've predominantly looked at that, are they attending to what their competitors are doing? They might be if they're smart. But if their competitors are suddenly going, we've ditched palm oil, there's an issue there. So yeah, so in their operations, you might look for what things are missing in terms of their market, the key marketing concepts that are being attended to by the company. So there's a difference here between whether it's just missing as information in the article, or whether the article indicates that it's missing from the company's considerations. And if there's a lot of things, if there's many of the marketing concepts, the different types of questions that might come out of that, you're still analysing the article, of course. So if they've just covered up and said that, they're doing a fabulous job of knowing their customer and their target market, and they're clear about their segment, but have you got much information? So my question here is, if I've got a lot of sweeping, for example, are there sweeping generalisations? Sort of thing where they're saying they have a good understanding of their customer, but the article gives you no clear evidence that that's the case. It's just the way it's written could be an opinion, or it could be something based on evidence, but you haven't got the evidence. So I'd be looking at that kind of thing. We've only got 1,000 to 1,500 words, so this is making it sound like a thesis, but it'll be better to find too much information and then have to prune it back, because then you'll get a nice, have the chance of getting a really sharp assignment out of it.
Do you think if there was many concepts missing in the article, you'd pick a different article to work from?
Look, my challenge with the way the
Then
question's
there's not much
written
research.
is you could do either.
Okay.
So it's basically just asking you to do an analysis of the article, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think that leaves the way open for me to go, well, look, the article only talks about how well they're doing this company's doing its SWOT analysis. So I'm now going to analyse the article in those terms and go, well, that tells me that this company's doing their SWOT analysis well or badly or mediocrely. However, this other article over here shows that, by contrast, gives me a detailed account of how a really good company does a very good SWOT analysis, and I might analyse on that, but I'd probably still want to make the point that both articles are concentrated mainly on one aspect, and I'd be using a chance to show off, so that it hasn't actually covered, here was an ideal opportunity in this article to also mention, for example, how the PESEL analysis contributed to a high quality SWOT analysis. That might be, so what would, and one of the guides for that will be like, gee whiz, that's really good, but how did they get there? So whether it's poor information or good information, you might be looking for indications. Well, I'll put it this way, indications of how conclusions are drawn. And some of the best kind of indication of that would be the article itself does a good analysis of what's gone on and given you evidence. And high quality analysis. Right through to mindless corporate speak as the opposite end of the scale. There is a bit of that around, isn't there? Is it unfair to say?
Normalizations.
So,
Normalizations.
nominalisations, yes.
Is that the word?
Yeah, that's the word. Efficiency, productivity. All those are the words that make us feel warm and fuzzy. We got no idea what it means. So there we go. Is that helping?
Yes.
So Luke, you could see, and so when you get to a question like this allows you to work with any article. So you might actually read the article and your colloquial conclusion about the article might be that this article's crap, it doesn't tell me anything. And you could say that in polite terms in your report. You can say the article's insubstantial and it doesn't support its arguments and seems to be based on, one commentator quoting another commentator without any evidence for the commentary. By contrast, this other article, says this and this. So an excellent way to go with these kinds of things could be a contrast. I've chosen this article because it's so bad. Or you might choose the other one and go, I've chosen this one, it's so good, and I've learned so much by contrasting this one with the really bad one. Seeing that you do have to actually compare others or, involve the others in the discussion. So this might give us some clues of things that you might, I won't say you must or should, but you might want to consider that go in there. So I'm just going to remove this and think, let's brainstorm what might be possible sections of the main part of your report. It can't be too many because it's only 1,000 words to 1,500 words. What's that? 3 pages, 4 pages? Gosh. But what might be I don't know your teacher, so I don't know what your teacher's after. But what do you think, if you were picking up to read, you're marking it, what do you think might be one of the first things you might want to know?
Do they understand the concepts? Like for example, the article about social marketing.
As
Do
a,
they analyse it, understand it, analyse it?
yeah, as a sort of, yes, that's sort of a first thing, but that's an overarching thing
Okay.
as well.
What about?
I may or may not be right in this, but well, this is what I would be going, okay, why have you chosen this article?
To identify whether the marketing plan outlines the headings are there or not, something like that. I mean, if you want to do a report, you have to identify what it is in the marketing, the concept like research, whether it's been done or not, everything.
Yeah. So I want to know if you've chosen the article because it actually does a really good analysis, or because it's a poor example and you're going to demonstrate a contrasting one that's really good, or that it demonstrates that Nestle is doing a fantastic job with addressing the palm oil issue, or that we still are left with major questions about it. So I'd be interested in, it's only going to be a sentence, probably, or two at the most, but why have you chosen that article?
All right, so we have in the body, we have a opinion paragraph as well.
An opinion paragraph?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the opinion.
Is that, where does it, well, so what headings have they given you in the body?
Oh, okay.
They haven't given us any.
No.
They haven't given you any. Right,
No.
okay, good.
We have to come up with.
Yeah, you have to come up with it, good. So, you would be expected, if it's a report, still, as you would in an essay, to be coming to some sort of conclusion, wouldn't you?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Is
Like
that, does the article demonstrate the marketing concepts as well? And there's there's a potential here that do we focus on how well the article demonstrates the marketing concepts, or do we focus on how well the organisation being spoken about? Now, my interpretation of the question so far seems to push it towards focusing on how well the article.
Well, it
Shows.
depends what the article is about. Article about, Nestle and what they're doing
Yeah.
in regards to palm oil, whereas another one will, what do women want,
Mm.
in
Yes.
society and in marketing. So it's two different things.
Yes.
So we really need to look at the article in order to work out what headings will
Yes, exactly right. So that's why it's
be
really.
and the direction.
None of us, no teacher can stand here at the front and be prescriptive about you need these headings, because it's very much going to depend on the article. So you might actually say one of the things that will be in your introductory paragraph will be, so what focus are what focus predominates?
In terms of this marketing business report, the idea is that the audience for the report is the CEO,
Yes,
and we are like in charge of the advertising for the company.
right.
So we have to recommend things, draw a conclusion, do recommendations based upon that article
Right.
to the business, to the CEO.
Oh, okay. So you have to analyse the article,
Yeah.
and then make recommendations.
Yeah.
Is that a different one from the other one?
It's the same one.
Same one.
For marketing. So based on one article that the teacher gave us,
Yep.
1 article out of 10, so use this, plus some others that we can find as well,
Yeah.
that support our argument.
Okay. That didn't really come through in the way the question's written, did it?
No.
So how did you know that?
He just mentioned it in
Question,
class.
we had like a bit of a,
He did say that our CEO was the person we're writing the
yeah,
report
that's
to.
the audience, the CEO.
Okay.
The question is very vague.
Well, that changes everything. If you're confident that the end result of the thing is a report to your CEO
Yeah.
based on, well, it doesn't change everything, it just changes the focus. So, all right, so what we're aiming at, all right, let's look at it. I've got to find an article, a main article. By the way, this is all reason, everything that I'm going through here, if I was sitting in the class, based on my previous academic experience, it'd be exactly the same. I'd be basically sitting there going, what the hell am I doing? What does this question mean? I'd go to the teacher and go, give me some more guidance on that. And then I have to start thinking, and it's a bit of an iterative process. How dangerous would it be just to read that question and just sit down and write something without that last bit of information? So we have to track that. So I'm going to find an article, and I'm going to find some other related, either contrasting or supporting articles that will develop my argument. I'm looking for what I want to extract from that, marketing concepts. And they might be explained poorly or they might be explained well, so all of that still applies, at least in my mind it does. But my output for this is a report of recommendations.
The conclusion of recommendations, yeah.
For my CEO. All right,
Yes.
so this might or might not be a useful question now. That one certainly is. Why that article? I've chosen this article because it demonstrates that one of our competitors is very successfully doing this, or this. And the way they're approaching the market and the way they're talking to the market is that they're doing this. They know their customers well. Let's say, for example, good. So if you say something like that, how do you know that? Is that demonstrated in the article, or is it demonstrated in different articles?
Right.
Is the main article, once again, all of this still applies, is the main article an article that's really poorly written, but somehow either one of your senior managers liked, but you found some better articles that much better demonstrate what this article is attempting to do and outlines the way the key marketing concepts can be applied to our company, and therefore this is the way we should do that, based on what we've seen is successful or not successful in these other companies. So one of the key things in my mind, again, is what you'll be sorting out here. Are these demonstrating what you will do? Are they giving you good examples on which you'll base your recommendations? Or are they giving you, let's call them contrasting examples? And by that I mean, sometimes from some articles you might go, look, it's not the way they're writing about this particular company. It makes it sound like this company has no idea what they're doing. And you could draw a lot from that by going, well, if this company was very clear about who their customers are and very clear about their target, then it might be this whole different ballgame. Therefore, in our company, that's what we need to do. As a glib example, I teach the critical thinking. So based on the first 3 semesters I did it, I taught it, I put together a set of guidelines on how to fail critical thinking. Because if you tell people how to pass critical thinking, like, study every week, do all the exercises or whatever. So we attempted a bit of humour and say, make sure that you don't do any of the exercises. So it's a complete contrasting example. But you might find some article that tells you what some companies have done that have been not successful, and therefore gives you good examples of what might be, even if it's not complete opposite.
Like what are the results for that?
Yeah, what are the results of that? And so one of the things you'll also be wanting to know is relevance of, what's the actual link to us and the company that you're talking about. So if I was talking about if I was writing a report for a cosmetic company and you were basing it on what you'd read in the Nestle article, could that be very clearly relevant?
Yeah.
I would have thought so. I would have thought there's palm oil in cosmetics. Am I right about that or not?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think that there definitely are somewhere along the line. It's being used in food, being used everywhere. So I would be surprised if there isn't palm oil in cosmetics. So that might. Whereas if I was looking at the Nestle article, and I was talking about selling a new type of smartphone. Well, if I was the CEO, one of my first questions is, what? How is this relevant? So that's something that drives you back to the marketing concept. So you go, okay, well, what we're looking at is they might be talking about palm oil, and we're talking about selling, you know, a particular colour of smartphone or a particular new feature. But what's relevant is the way they actually were very clear about their target market. So you're starting to look for what are the key aspects in this article that were contrastingly not relevant or were particularly relevant to the types of recommendations that you're going to make. So I still want to know why that article, but particularly if you're writing for a CEO, it really will only be one sentence. It'll be something like this, the article, you know, the recommendations in this report are based on predominantly on the article about such and such, because it very clearly demonstrates one or two of the key marketing concepts that the report concludes this company needs to particularly pay attention to. And you might want to break that up into 3 sentences for most CEOs. That was a long sentence. You asked me about the 10-word sentences. Yeah, for CEOs, 10-word sentences. For academics, you can use 200-word sentences as long as the punctuation's good and the logic flow is good. I am cynical, aren't I?
Nice.
Just realistic, I think. I'm not sure if I dare leave that in the video or not, but we'll see how we go. Got a few things I have to cut out, like my grumbling about this that we've started. All right, what's the next question you've got?
A different report or this?
Oh.
On this?
Oh, anything on this? Is it, so let me know, is this actually helping?
I definitely do.
Yeah, good. And all I'm really doing is going through what are some of the thinking processes to sort it out. You've got the headings, but your main challenge is going to be in this, and it seems to me that now we know that key bit of information, that it is reliable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So if we know that, then that shapes... apart from the actual information, what else does that shape about the report? So let's think of some of my own coloured
It's get things that find things that are relevant and apply those to our company.
Yeah, well, so it's got to be directly relevant to the company that you're talking about, or the type of company you're talking about. But it shapes also, it's going to shape your style. I mean, the report's it's still a business report, so it's still going to be sort of a succinct, formal style. But there'll be some differences compared if you were writing a report that was going to be for the Human Resources Association or something like that. That again might have slightly more extended sentences, and it might, you know, they'll probably tolerate a slightly longer introduction, for example, those kinds of things. So if you're writing for a CEO, then 1,000 to 1,500 words is, yeah, well, truly the limit in most cases, I would think. So the style of grammar, how formal, how short the sentences are, that kind of thing. You will want to make sure that key points, and as far as you know, if you're a teacher, you're allowed to use bullet points in paragraphs, or do they want prose?
No, I'm sure they said.
Bullet points or prose?
Headings, subheadings, I think.
Yeah, so you'll have subheadings, of course, but make sure it's very succinct in terms of, if I'm reading through, I know exactly where I am in the report and what the key areas are. So it might be, can I remove this?
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll show up on the camera anyway too if I need it. So if we're using subheadings, we might end up having something like, so here's one set of suggestions, and let's do one set of subheading suggestions, and then let's do another, just so that we don't get entrapped and then you use one set of headings and then get a mark. You don't like me. Oh, that's Peter's fault, he put those headings up. But it seems to me that if I was going to do this, so the, my overall heading might be analysis.
Is this for the body, is it?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I don't know what heading your teacher wants you to use, but let's say that this is the body. It would be in the executive summary, but it would be. I'm not sure what's the best heading for the main point of the article. It's why this article and the key relevance of it.
Right.
So. Might even put relevance of article. You might find something else. And it's probably going to be about 3 sentences max, I would think. Would you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've chosen this article because it's, let's say, approximately 3 sentences, maybe 5. This article has been chosen because it demonstrates an excellent example of a company that increased its market share by being very clear about which segment of the market is and who are the target customers in that segment. And the article demonstrates superbly that it's done that. Got the idea?
More than 3 sentences, I think.
That was only about, it was only 3 sentences. They're long.
Long sentence.
Long sentences. Something along those lines.
So it increases market share and through its customers.
Yeah, it increases market share because it was so able to identify. I'm not sure if that applies to your article, but I'm just reeling off possible examples to give you an idea of the length, maximum length of these things. What would be next?
What are you? Is it finding? What do you-
Yeah, it might be the key findings or key results. So key findings. In the second mod might be the key results for the company. So this is basically, the company managed to do this, this and this. Another article might be how that was achieved. Another subheading, how that was achieved. There might be another one here, based on your other articles, what else could be done, or could have been done. Could be, or could have been, depending on. And then after that, there might be implications for us. Or something along those lines, and then your recommendations. Which might or might not go in the body, or it might be a separate major section, depending on how your teacher wants it to be.
So key findings, they're like the conclusions, are they? Key results.
Well, these are the key things, if you like, the key things you've learned from the article, the key things demonstrated. And it might be, it could be anything from along the lines of this article demonstrates that company X really had no clue what they were doing. And unfortunately, the similarity between what they did, there seems to be a similarity between what they did and what our company is currently doing. Now, if I look at this other article where there was a different company who was making the same mistakes but realised at an early stage and took this particular action based on the similarity between the starting conditions of this company and this company, as mentioned in the articles, it would seem that a recommendation for us would be to take a similar action to company Y rather than follow the declining path of company X. So, does that sort of thing help?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems to me to, based on the information I've got at this stage, it might not be the exact wording, but some of the key chunks of my analysis. And what that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1,500 words. You're not going to get any more subheadings than that.
Sure.
Some of them might be key results. It might be, and this might have 2 subheadings. You know, successes and failures. And again, that points to implications for us. You can hear also too, there's a fair bit of work in deciding whether you're going to be using articles that contrast or articles that support each other, where you've got 5 articles that show that all companies that do these actions just succeed massively. Or you might have one that talks about key marketing concepts, and even another article that disputes that, do you really need to be, something that I'd been preparing for the other one, which seems to be not relevant anyway, so it doesn't matter that I can't connect the computer. I was looking at the one with vision and mission and stuff, so, can you have a spectacularly well-written mission and no actual written vision for a company? And some companies do succeed like that, The standard orthodox is, you need a mission statement, and it's very nice to have one, but most of them are fairly awful anyway. So there might be a debate about whether you want contrasting articles and then come up with something like that. Or you might have, say, you might look at all the really good literature. I mentioned Russell Ackoff last week, and his book, The Best of Ackoff, is a good one. Another one's Idealised Design. And he writes some great stuff on what it makes good mission statements, for example. I had those slides ready to show you, but maybe what I can do is when we post this, we can post those slides as well.
Great.
Good. What's your next question? What's still lurking in your minds? What are you still going? Yeah, but don't know what to do about this particular part. When's this due?
Next week.
Next week.
Saturday.
Just as when you started researching it 6 weeks ago. Yeah. Now, have you got articles that allow you to do this? That's the question. Or do you need to do some rapid research?
Rapid research.
Yeah.
Rapid research. Right. But you've been given the articles, haven't you?
Yes.
But you're allowed to use other, academic literature and other articles as well. So there's a bit of rapid research. If you're clear about your key marketing concepts, then my guess is that's still a very, very doable job, even in only a week. You've got the base articles to choose from. You might say, I'm going to spend no more than 2 nights doing the research for other articles, and then I'm going to work with what I've got. What will come through, the key thing then is how clear are you about these things?
Yeah.
Very well. The other 4. Because
Yes.
there's 5 of them.
Yeah, so you've obviously got to look through the articles and go, is this article actually supporting what's saying in this one, or is it contradicting some aspects of this article, or is there no connection?
In the
Does the combination of them give me a broader picture? So this one mentions, a company that's looking after the SWOT and pestle analysis well, while this article's showing how a company chooses its target market. When I'm self-employed, that was always my problem. My mentor used to keep saying to me, who's your target market? I'm going, I don't know, whoever pays.
Good target.
Which is probably why I'm not a millionaire.
That will be in the conclusion, right? In the same conclusion, you know, the compare with other articles, you know, like this is totally easy.
Oh, I would
That
think.
means we have to really do a little bit of sort of analysis with the other articles. as
Some of your comparison I would expect to happen through here as well.
well. In the body.
You know, whereas articles, so
Okay, yeah, a little bit on the
Because you
body.
have to
Yeah,
Yeah.
references as well.
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, and your references won't be counted in your word count.
No.
So, but I would be and the whole point. If I was marking it, the whole point of being as you go through this, are you showing me what you've learned about the application of the marketing concepts as a result of reading those articles and analysing those articles?
That's in
Yes,
short.
and that's a key thing.
That's the key thing. So yeah, I'll say that again so it's clear on the video. So if I was marking it, I'm looking for, have you shown from your reading of these articles and your analysis of them, whether that's are you showing me how clear you are about the application of the marketing concepts and what works for a particular company? And so there's scope in there for going, you know, Article 1 says this, this and this, Article 2 says that, and that's contradictory, but what's missing in those articles is that this one is an entirely different market segmentation, so what they're saying there works in that segment of the market, but over here, it seems to contradict this, but it's an entirely different market. So, you know, what would be an example of that? I'm not a marketer, but, you know, this marketing might be talking about marketing to people under 35, or this one's talking about marketing to people in the 45 to 60 range. And so there might be very different approaches. And there might not be. I might be wrong about that too. So, but that's your job to analyse that. You're the one studying the subject.
Well, that means we're not doing just one article. We're doing 5 articles.
You have a central article, yes, and you're looking.
5 articles.
Yeah, so choose one.
Choose
Yeah,
one
I
from.
know, but
list he
it's a
gave
lot.
you.
You know, the other 4 as well.
You don't do all of them that
Yeah, I
he
know.
gave
We
you.
still got to
Choose one,
Yeah, I know.
but you have to research others.
Yeah, you do
Yes.
independent research from other places.
Yeah.
Don't choose from,
That
just
means
choose
the one to
one.
write is more than 1,500, I think.
That's not. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of thinking. And it's a lot of analysis. There's not much writing.
You still have
Or
to
you
do
might write 3,000
research.
words and then you prune it back. And that's one of our challenges that any of us has faced when we get into higher ed. It's like people want us to do this, and it's like, yeah, I actually have to read these 5 articles and really think about them, and then go, how does this one connect with that? And there's this other article, and there's that bit of research there that I've also that relates to one of the articles. So that remember last week? Were you here last week?
Last week? No.
No, I don't think you were. What was I saying last week about the preparation? So when were you handed this assignment?
Well, last week.
When were you given this assignment? It's due next week.
Yeah.
Weren't you told about it in week 1?
We were, but we sort of didn't cover the concepts.
Oh, right, yeah, you hadn't covered the concept, but you had the question.
Yeah.
Good. So, as I said last week, and for the benefit of video, one of the tricks you'll learn is like, read the question in week 1. As soon as you're given it, even if it's not due for 6 months, you read the question and go, okay, my brain is now going to work on that in the background. My brain knows now that I have to get very clear about what the key marketing concepts are. My brain also knows I have to find a central article that I'm going to focus this assignment on, but I has to look at the other articles. So as I learn the marketing concepts over the next 6 weeks, I can keep coming back to this periodically until maybe the last 2 weeks where I do the bulk of the work. But, you know, so for second semester, that's the approach. Any assignment they give you up front, make sure you read it straight away. And you go, sure, I don't know the marketing concepts yet, I haven't been taught those, but what I'm doing is now I've grown little antennae that are going to go, that's going to help with that assignment. And then the following week, someone's going to say something, that's going to help with that assignment. Oh, now I know about market segmentation. That's in that article. Look at that. Okay, so that might be relevant to my essay in 2 or 3 weeks. And so you just add on until you finally go, I've now got enough to concentrate. But yeah, there's no way around. For this one, I would suggest if you've got 5 articles there, it's a detailed reading of all 5. You choose a central one. Which one are you going to mainly base this on? But what are the other articles that you're using to either support your findings from this one and your recommendations from that one, or that will contradict what's said in this one, and therefore these articles will lead to your thing.
And he gave us, last week, gave us some fresh articles, you know, he said, ignore the other old 5, so we have to, how many new ones? 2 extra new ones? He said just abandon the old ones, and because it's too sketchy, he said, you know,
Okay.
so we have
So he's
to-
giving you new ones.
Yeah, we have new ones which we haven't discussed before, like what women want, right? What women want.
Oh, what can I say?
Read them! So we have to...
This is higher education. That's one of the deals. All right, do you want a quick break before we continue on? So let's take 10 minutes. So just to tidy up that last little bit, remember that these headings are possible headings.
Yeah.
Not the ones, I'm not saying, this is my disclaimer, I'm not saying these are ones you should or must use, they're just possible ones to give you a bit of an idea of how to segment that body. Interesting, there's a nice contrast between the two. So one is very broad and open and says, you know, find an article and analyse it in terms of the marketing concepts, and leaves it fairly broad, the approach you can take, which is reasonable. What year are you folk in? First year, second year, third year? First year, yeah, okay. So the more broad and the more open to your interpretation it is, you'd expect a lot of that, and you know, as you go to sort of second, third year. So you've got an advanced assignment for that.
Which is an advanced assignment.
Advanced, where there's it relies more on your interpretation. Well, that's why you're like, okay, so have you got a project for your master's thesis? Type one. Okay, so this next one on the ethics one. So you've actually got 4 specific questions and a case study to work on. I'm just doing a quick scan. So you've got these aspects. I'll write them up. It's kind of interesting to fit these in. I'll use my nice coloured pens for this one. What does that immediately tell you have to do?
They give the questions for you.
Oh yeah, well you have to be familiar with your theories of ethics.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see one of the reasons. So if you're not familiar with your theories of ethics, guess what your homework tonight is? Make that between the first and second glass of wine.
Can you learn those stuff?
Otherwise you won't remember. So you've got collected sources, so info from collected sources. You've got, so you've got the description, so you've got to analyse and reflect on the case study. So what is, just as you read through, the little things should pop up and flag things to you. So obviously you've got the case studies, collected sources, but you immediately know you expect to look at other things. What is, so we analyse, yes, we've got to look at, and the forewording is describe and solve ethical issues by analysing and reflecting on a case study. So pop that in there, solve ethical issues by analysing. Reflect on, immediately suggest to you that you are going to be asked to draw some conclusions. Use appropriate structure and mechanics of language. That's an interesting concept. Or I'll just put language. And referencing. Oops. I was teaching all weekend. I had a few interesting spellings up here, which I don't normally in my workload. Cool. I did it again. Referencing. It's a new word. New word from the critical thinking department. Referencing. So the language, that's just going to basically mean what in this case, where it says use appropriate structure and mechanics of language.
Right, correctly.
Right, correctly. Formal higher education report writing style. So the real work's here, unless you're not used to referencing. You've got 4 main questions. Let's see what these 4 questions are about. The first one is the relating to the big business risks. If your body of your report had 4 sections, what do you think they might be? I'd just go with I'd go with the questions. I've got a question on risks, and then and there's an interesting thing here. There's, what are we looking at? We've got something about the particular risks of the company, and that's going to be, your case study is going to be very influential in looking at that, I imagine. I haven't read the case study, but so at least one of you must have read the case study.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that gives you a lot of information about the risks that Enron were facing and possibly some reasons of why they acted the way they did. Does it?
Yeah, the stocks, I think. The
Yeah.
stock.
How are they doing it up?
Yeah, they just push up the stocks. Yeah. Something like that.
It'll be up to you to work out how these fit in. I haven't studied theories of ethics. I try to be a nice person. I don't know what the actual theories are. The auditors, you've got a role there of, how much should auditors be given access to all the auditing material, carte blanche, and should they be allowed to have a role where it's not auditing? I imagine that there's something in the case study, or at least in some of the related literature, that links that to that. Does anyone know yet?
Yeah, the auditors have no independence in they are doing all the books, external as well as they are filling the roles as external auditors as well as internal, as well as the management, the consultancy management side.
So that's what
doing
happened.
Everything. That's what happens. It's just like conflict of interest.
Right. So we've got conflict of interest. So yes, so there should be, I'd imagine there'd be some link there. And then obviously there's accounting standard. This then comes down to how do you interpret this last part, this 4th question, which comes down to, if you were in an organisation and there was something unethical behaviour going on, and that would also link back to your theories of ethics. What are the likely consequences for your career? Or if somebody accused you of doing something unethical, what might be the effects? My first thought with that is that hopefully there will be a lot of learning from answering these sections that will give you, clues of how you want to go about answering that one. But the next question on this is from me to you is, so what do you need some guidance on at this point? The headings, you pick a suitable heading. I mean, I don't think there's any harm. There's probably no harm in including the question for that section. Again, it depends on your teacher, so I don't know what they prefer, but you just don't count the question in your word count.
Do we just like number 1? What were the business risks faced by the company? Blah blah blah. And number 2, answer that. And number 2, answer that. Number 3, that's the body. Something like that. Is it or?
That would be my inclination of how to approach it. Anyone got any different thoughts? It's not necessarily the only way. What are some of the key theories of ethics that come into play in this? Anyone? And the reason I'm asking is, could you have different heading sections that answer these questions, but with reference to specific theories of ethics?
That's an idea.
Given that I know nothing about theories of ethics, I don't know, but my question is, maybe there's, theory A says this, this and this, and I can actually address something about the risks and the accounting standards in reference to that. So is there a theory about conflict of interest, for example? So it would then strike me that would be particularly relevant, and under that heading I might be able to discuss both the risks and the role of the auditors. And if there was another heading about the role of principals as guiding principles in society and in organisations compared to just, prescriptive standards, then that maybe I could see once again that there would be, I could potentially discuss that question and that question under that theory, if there is such a thing. I don't know what your theories are. My first inclination, again, not studying the subject, is that the 4 questions give you very, very clear sections to work on. You'd label it, risks, and so the good question then becomes, what would be some of the things you would do under this? So you've got to keep all of this in mind. So they want you to look at info from collected sources. So you've got one main case study, but there should be some other supporting literature. You're meant to encompass theories of ethics and do some critical appraisal of the case study and what you're finding in there. And you're asked to analyse and reflect on it. And you can see that there's my interpretation of the question is that there's then a focus of what are you learning about your role in this whole sphere of ethics? And so there's a concentration in this one on the impact on the individual. There's potentially room to discuss, depending on how many words you've got left. What is the role of the individual if you find something inappropriate going on? And how do the whole issue of what happens to whistleblowers? Now, you've only got 1,500 words, so you might have to decide whether to put that in or not. So I'm just ranging. I'm doing what I would do with any essay. I look at it and I go, or any report, what are the possibilities? And then at every step of the way, you'll come back to, you'll come back to the question, keep coming back to the question, go, I've got this idea, this idea, but yeah, that'd be nice, but I can't fit it in 1,500 words, or I can fit 2 sentences in, can I link that? One thing I would be thinking about is that the question asks about Enron, yes? And what were the risks they faced? However, who's read the actual case study yet? Yeah. Does it also point to more generalised learning with respect to risks in companies similar to or even different from Enron?
The bits that I've read, no.
No. But here's the thing that's occurring to me at the moment. You've got this thing lurking up here. Theories of ethics. So if we discuss Enron in particular, does that lead me in this section even to start looking at some aspect of general application?
Sorry, it was Enron and Anderson.
And Enron and Anderson. So, but
which
yeah.
is the accounting.
So you might spend some of this section, or most of the section, going, what were the risks in Enron and Anderson? But it might be nice within that section to have a little summary of going, so some general application or what we've learned about the risks in these companies could also apply blah, 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 blah. And that would be, to my mind, that would be addressing the introduction of, and give you a license to talk about the theories of ethics, which seems to be the point of the report. Obviously, there's a thing in here about conflict of interest as a general theme by the look of it. So, and there must be something about that in there. So that seems to be a key point to mention in that one. And I'll keep adding the disclaimer on this for the video, just in case your lecturer doesn't like what I'm saying. I've only just read the question once and I'm not studying the subject, but just a brief excursion into the question, that seems to be the role of that, and particularly the role of independence is the other aspect of that. And I wouldn't mind betting that there's some theory of ethics that talks about the necessity for having independent assessment of organisations and operations and all that kind of thing. That'd be my guess, but that's your specialty area.
Can you read it out?
Sorry?
I can't see.
Oh, sorry. Conflict of interest, independence.
You know the accounting standards, because I know that Enron is an American company.
Yes.
So the accounting standards, we use our Australian standards to apply that, or we use the US one?
Some
Well-
of them are different.
Well, some of them are different, and isn't the whole marketing world moving to a whole different? Didn't it recently
On
move to a whole different
international
standard?
Accounting standards.
Some international accounting standards.
Yeah, but the US is not.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the point of the question. The point of the question was some terms I'm not familiar with. What is the bright line accounting standards, which sounds like it's dealing with just profit or something, but principle based standards.
Oh, okay.
So you need to be very clear. I don't think it's Australia standards versus it's what are the underlying
Yeah.
philosophy of the standards.
The other thing is that Enron, being international, would have to now have, since it's in other areas, they have to apply to the standards that are in that particular country
Yes.
as well. So it has to be, they have to be
International.
So one of the things you're going to need to be is very clear about what the question means by principle-based standards and the bright line thing and whatever the other there's a third term in that question as well, of some sort of standard. I'm not sure what it is.
Oh yeah, they have people in other countries as well, right? Yeah.
And I would guess, once again, that if I'm talking about principle-based standards, that either directly or by your craftful contrivance with language, there's a direct link to important aspects of some theories of ethics. After all, that's what principles are about.
They're rule-based ethics, basically.
Yeah. And they're guiding things. So I was teaching neurolinguistic programming over the weekend. It's probably why and there's a whole lot of flavours of that. And as someone was asking about different versions, I said, well, they'd been in a bad training when contrasting mine, which they thought was a good one. But one of the key things is that some people go out and they just teach a few little techniques, and they don't teach any of the underlying principles of why those techniques work, or how it creates a coherent methodology. So my guess is that something like this, this becomes an encompassing, a context-setting type of standards rather than just something that says, oh, these are the rules and we just bend them, work with them. We're actually working with, there has to be absolute transparency in the way we do this, for example. I'm guessing, but I don't know what they say, but it's going to be a deeper approach to it. And once again, guessing, but speculating, it's going to encompass a philosophy and a degree of responsibility beyond just making money in the company. I would hope. And this is very much about awareness. I don't know that it needs to be that needs to be addressed, because it's asking you to think about consequences and if you're caught in a situation where something like Enron was going on. It's asking you to think about what could happen to you if somebody suspected you of being unethical. Embedded in that, and you may or may not choose to address it, is just what's your whole philosophy to your personal responsibility in the issue of ethics. I doubt if that's intended to come out explicitly, but if I was setting up a question like that, that's what I would want my students to be thinking about. Where do you stand? Do you think it's all right to do anything as long as we make money for the shareholders, or
As long as they don't get caught.
as long as you don't get caught? Or, no need to answer that out loud. Just but it's definitely an implicit question in that section, as far as I'm concerned. Again,
As long as you adhere to the law.
yeah.
As long as it's legal.
Yeah, as long as it's legal. It doesn't matter how unethical. There's a point, by the way.
But is ethical business good business? That's the question, I guess.
So there's something you may fit into your assignment somewhere based on your theories of ethics. Does legality equate with being ethical?
Ethics is more than legal.
Absolutely it is.
It's beyond the law.
But a lot of people's personal ethics are, as long as I you know, I'm legal, it's okay. You know,
Some people don't even do that.
there's it probably doesn't come into this, but one of the things I've been interested in, I don't know where I came across a couple of years ago, because there's this sort of growing debate about neoliberalism and the outfall of privatisation, things like electricity prices and all of that. And 2 or 3 years ago, I was writing something for AIM, and I came across one of the quotes from Milton Friedman. So it was about 1972 when he was at Chicago School of Economics, good old Milton. And the famous thing in one of his papers, it just seems to have guided the hot Thatcher, Reagan, everybody's sense is that the only responsibility any corporation has is to maximise its shareholder value. And I just think it's utterly reprehensible that's been the guiding theory. You know, don't worry about the employees, don't worry about the customers as long as you've got some. And because you have to think when you say stuff like that, it has an enormous impact on the psychology of business. So you're getting some of my personal view on it, but you can see how it's affected things like so-called Reaganomics and this idea that somehow privatisation is always better. And there's this fuss in today's paper that government's just realising that we have all this competition with the electricity retailers, but prices are going up. Isn't competition meant to lower the prices? Theoretically. So in all of that, so I'm guessing somewhere in there's a scope for at least a sentence or two on this legal versus ethics.
Peter, who was that person you just said about them in the 70s?
Milton Friedman. Yeah. And seems to me to be a very bleak philosophy, but I mean technically he was looking at it from within. I suppose if you do the psychology of it, he's going, well, if this is the corporation is an entity, and the things that have invested in the corporation are the shareholders and they're expecting a return, so yes, you've got to do that. But I don't know, and to be honest, I don't know if he went on to say anything about the mode of operating, but for the snippets and bits and pieces I've seen, and certainly the way it's been interpreted in a lot of places, it's, you know, just let's do whatever we can to maximise the profits, and so we can distribute it amongst the shareholders and the higher echelons of the executive. Anyway, that's a bit of personal bandwagon. I won't stay on that one too long. Other questions on this? Referencing. Good. Happy with that?
Management, you know, that management, we all do that. All of us do that, but that was a long time ago that we do that.
You do the
Can I give
referencing.
you an example of a referencing that I was trying to do last night? It was from the website of the State Library.
Yeah.
So ERE source, and it was .gov.au, and then it was a actual case that
Right.
I was doing. So it had the, you know, the case.
Yeah.
And I had to reference that. Now, do I reference it from the case, or do I reference it from the State Library, or the e-source?
Who's the technical owner of it, or the
Well, it's the High Court.
or the author of it?
It would have been the High Court.
So
It was a
I'd
copy
actually,
of the High Court.
things like those sort of articles, I'd have to go and look at the guidelines
Okay.
to actually
I
show.
was just trying
But,
to.
but something like an article, let's suppose I got an article off the Herald, and we knew the author. Let's suppose one of my favourites. Let's say I got Elizabeth Farrelly. So that would go in as Farrelly E.
So
And
it's
The first name
Yeah.
and then comma,
no, that's surname.
surname.
That's the surname. So this is the actual reference.
Yes.
Referencing. And so it would go in as E. If there are two initials, you put the second one in, and she's EM in fact. Then there's the date.
Yeah.
So it'd be 2017.
And then there's a comma.
And some put a comma here, some don't.
Yeah. Dot.
It's
I
not.
don't think
Dot.
the referencing on our one that we have has the comma there.
No, I don't. They're tending to drop unless they don't put the full stops in now. So they're tending to drop unnecessary. Some systems will, and it'll depend on the institution. Some institutions will go, this is still Harvard author date, but some institutions want the parentheses and some don't.
And we're allowed to have that.
And the referencing systems, the referencing software, you can set up those parentheses. If you're not using referencing software, then just be very consistent right from the beginning if you're typing them all in. Then there'd be the name of the article, it'd be like, you know, what's her favourite word lately? Governelopers, and then it'd be the publisher, which is Sydney Morning Herald. Herald, etc., etc. And then, if it's accessed online, you actually have to put and typically I use those, the chevrons, and then you have the actual URL, the full URL, and you have the, and I forget where we put it. We put accessed before, don't we?
Yes.
Yes. So accessed, and then you've got the date, accessed, and there's the date with comma. Sometimes we don't put that comma in, we just put accessed and then that in chevrons. So that's something like the books and journal articles are straightforward. It's just, you know, if it's a journal article, it's the name of the author or authors, and then the date and the name of the article once again. If it's a journal, the journal name goes in italics, and this doesn't. If it's something like, if it's something from the High Court, my guess is it would be something like High Court of Australia. And then, you know, 2017, and whatever the name of the document is, and then the publisher of it, which might be Australian Government or whoever,
State library.
or State Library, if they're the publisher of it. And then if you've accessed it online, once again. But you'll find, if you look up which is, causes me to ask the question, there are TAFE guidelines for the Harvard author date system
You just look up the guidelines.
available.
Yeah.
Who's looked those up so far?
We've been given a copy of them.
You've been given a
We
copy of
have
it.
got a
Good.
copy on our Moodle.
Oh, you
Yes,
have.
there is.
Yeah, we have got a
Yeah.
copy
Yeah.
on
Oh,
our.
you have.
Just
Yes.
look it up.
So, and for things like that, if I
It's
was
just confusing.
if I was doing another article now, I'd have to go through and look through this, and just be grateful you're not using APA, which is horrifying.
No, it's all right. I wish I can never do it.
So that means we're not allowed to use a Microsoft Word that, the word automatic Harvard referencing. You have to manually.
You might be able to do
You
it
might be able to.
for ethics, but us or for marketing.
Marketing can't do it.
Well, last year he wouldn't let us do it.
Oh, why?
Does Microsoft Word do automatic referencing?
Yeah,
now? Is
that's
it?
right.
Don't they try to do everything?
So I mean, solve so much problems. You know, I mean, it's the same. You know,
Not
with
quite right.
I
It
would
might
not.
not be to the same standards though as what
yeah,
they
it's the
wanted
same
us to do.
standard Harvard. Harvard. I
Well, if
mean,
it
Yeah,
looks
but
the
there
same
are-
as what's
but-
on your reference sheet.
But there are versions of Harvard Author Date, as I said. There are some that'll put the parentheses in here and some that won't. I use bookends, and you can set it up to be exactly how you want it for the university or the organisation that you're sending it to. And so something like bookends or endnote, you'll find you can actually say, you just put your references in, you make sure everything's in the right fields, and then you say, I want my list of references for this essay to come out in APA format, and it'll do all the organisation for you. Or I want it in Harvard Author Date, it'll do it in the relevant organisation for you. So they're a worthwhile investment if you've got an academic, you know, few academic years ahead of you. Don't know, Microsoft Word. Ugh.
yeah, so much. Especially, you know, I done it in management some years back, you know, and, you know, he was he was part of the teaching us management as well. So, you know, I don't know, maybe I should ask him.
Yeah, check what they want.
Because he did, you know.
Because some teachers get very particular, and if you get the referencing slightly wrong, they'll take marks away, and others will count the number of references. So we had a bit of a discussion about that last week. So just make sure you're happy with what your teacher wants. I think you also had a question about the in-paragraph citations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your reference. That's the list of stuff you put at the end of your essay, but your citations are when you're quoting. And you're either citing somebody or directly quoting, it's the same thing. But I might go, you know, blah, 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 the government has been taken over by developers, blah, 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 and it would be thoroughly. Really, I need more sleep tonight. Thoroughly 2017, and if there are page numbers, then if it was an article where I had a page number, I'd put the page number in, you know, page 19 or something. If with something like an online article, it can be difficult to do that. So once again, check. I think we can get away with actually leaving page number reference out if it's something that doesn't have referenced page numbers. There are, again, see what the TAFE ones want with Kindle books. If you look up Kindle, some of them now have page numbers, so you can actually use the page numbers. Others still have location. The older style APA makes you say, you know, third paragraph, chapter 3, third section 4, third paragraph. Whereas I can't see any problem with using location. It's as accurate as saying page. Someone sends you to the page, you still have to scan the page to find it. So location will take you there anyway in a Kindle book. But again, check the TAFE one if they've got a particular requirement on something like an ebook. If it is something that has a page number, then definitely, you know, it might be Smith 2010, page 39. And find out whether they want the full stop there or not.
They usually want the full stop.
Here we are.
And a full stop at the end, after the bracket.
After, oh yeah, well, that depends whether it's in the middle of the sentence or not. But if it's the end of the sentence, yes.
So if it's no date but no year, so we just put it ND or
If there's what?
no date? Because some article they don't have a date on it.
Oh yeah, you just put no date or ND, yeah,
ND.
if it's not available. Does that cover it? But yes, spend some time looking through the guidelines for that. Good.
Great.
Any other quick questions or? Oh, you've got a class now anyway, haven't you?
So
Some-
if there's the comma missing and the full stop missing, so marks will be taken off if, let's say, a comma is missing or dot is missing.
What, in these?
Yeah.
I-
Because it's manual, you know, sometimes, you know, I mean, human errors, you can have a full stop omitted or.
Are they going to take marks off? Are you asking me or are you telling me they do?
It depends what lecture you
It
have.
depends on your lecturer.
It's so unfair.
Editing, proofreading.
I mean, it's the content that you want, right? You know.
So hopefully that's been useful. I'm sorry about the
Thank you, Mark.
technological fuss at the beginning. I'm going to kill that computer.